Good morning and good afternoon to each and every one of our Merry Marvelites. Welcome to Marvel Movie Talk right here on the Blackcast YouTube network. It's a channel, but I like the word network, always sounds better. As always, I am Christian Bladt. Right next to me, the one, the only, the Michael X. Shirley.
That's me! Hey, you guys.
And of course, Eric Connor. And I'm sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses. You're Itzhak who?
Yitzhak Avraham, that's my Hebrew name. I'm sitting Shiva right now for Steven.
For Mark Spector's crazy mom, you're sitting Shiva. Awesome.
I am too. I forgot to wear black. I tweeted about it though.
You did tweet about it. Well, that's, you know what, honestly, that's more important than actually doing it. And of course, Jeff Williams Jr., one of two people on today's show sporting a Captain America shield, making his debut on Marvel Movie Talk, David Brody. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, everybody.
Now, this must have been rough. Oh, and of course, a puppy friend, and usually Eric's dog shows up. So, and I'm going to have to apologize to Jeff and to Michael right off the bat that you are outnumbered by Mets fans. So we'll probably be telling each other the score to the game that's currently being played. Steven Matt's giving up at least 4 runs so far in 2 innings. So great news for everybody except the 2 of you who don't care.
Whatever makes you happy.
It does. It is what makes me happy.
It makes us ecstatic.
So, David, as our guest, I would like to sort of start with you. This was the first episode that you had to watch as a commoner, as a peasant, because you saw the 4 episodes previously because you're on whatever list I fell off of where I used to get the Disney Plus shows. So I've been watching them like the rest of the trash, but this was it tough to have to actually wait and then go like, I guess I'll have to watch it after, well, I guess it's after 3 a.m. your time.
Yeah, I did. I watched it a little while ago. So I got off work at 10 a.m. East Coast, came home by 11:30, watched the episode. So it's fresh in my head. But yeah, I did watch the 4 episodes, I guess a month ago now. Yeah. And I enjoyed them in a row, but I prefer, as I think I mentioned to you before, I prefer watching them weekly. I like watching videos like this, watching people break them down and point out every Easter egg and what did I miss. And so I like that week to kind of absorb it and dig deep and what, so I've had to wait while everyone was, tweeting about it. I saw it 3 weeks ago. So this was great to finally see a new episode, because for me, it's been a long time waiting for this episode. So
you're only going to get one more. So
yeah, that's the downside. I would have liked the 4 episodes had there been 12.
Yeah.
Right. But 4 out of 6 seemed weird. And I told myself I would stop after 2, but it was so good. I couldn't stop.
Right. Couldn't stop. So no, absolutely. And so seeing this episode, picking back up from where we all left off, the rest of us trash last week, you a month ago. But what do you think about where the story went in this 5th episode, David?
Well, when 4 ended, I thought, okay, they're in the mental institution and I'm not sure what's going on, but by episode 5, they'll explain everything. I think I speak for everyone when they really didn't explain anything. So we still don't know what's reality, what's his fantasy. Watching so many breakdowns of last week, and we'll talk more about this, I guess, as the podcast goes on.
Yeah.
Everything from last week, episode 4, everything in that asylum was something that happened in the first 3 episodes, right? Every figure, every postcard, every person, everything, every lamp, every single thing in that asylum was from the show earlier. And they continued that this episode a little bit. And so I still am not 100% sure if he dreamed it all, or this is an unbelievably elaborate recreation of his life by Dr. Harrow. I don't know. I don't know where they're going with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our hippopotamus friend, who last week I dubbed Henrietta Hippo from the Newzoo Review, and I'm going to stick with that. To the delight of 2 people, one of them being me. But I know, Eric, you sent me some stuff about, I guess, the actress who brings us our hippo friend, right?
Yeah, so I hadn't heard of her before. In fact, I think this might be her TV debut.
Okay.
So it's funny. Christian, I sent you the link. I didn't even memorize the
You didn't
name,
even actually
but
look
yeah,
at
she
it.
did.
All right, because that's the
She-
important thing, though, is to send it to me.
Oh wow!
But
Thank
that's
you,
all right.
Christian.
No,
So all those
no,
special
no.
pics I send you late at night, you just don't look at those
No,
either.
look, you're not the one that sends me special pics. So,
no, wait a minute. I sent you two videos. I never heard back on those videos I sent you.
Right, but those weren't your videos.
Well, you don't know that.
That's you know what?
There
That's
could have been a butt
point.
shot in there somewhere.
It could have been. So the hippo is the Egyptian deity Tawaret. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but
I think it's Tawaret.
Jeff, you'll go with me on that, Tawaret. You know.
No, I think David had it right.
Yeah. All right, David. You say it, David.
I think it's Tawaret.
Tawaret. All right. So that's a mini Tower Records shop. I got it. A Tawaret. Now I've got it. So I think that what she presented was probably at face value. It's like, this is how you're processing all of it. I think that they're absolutely not in an insane asylum, which I did think was possible last week. I think that, it's very elaborate, but, the fact that it's recreating all these things, going through all the doors and whatnot. But I found it to be interesting. But Eric, even though you're more of a fan of from afar of Tawaret, the giant hippo, aka Henrietta, what did you think about the way this episode unfolded?
It's interesting. The episode's title is Asylum. So yes. I mean, it's funny. Like, even the title's, "Hey guys, we're gonna stay there." All that stuff from episode 4, we're pausing it right now as we get into some deep dive psychological horror. I thought it was such a bold episode. I mean, I know, Christian, something you've talked about before, like the way Marvel's going to keep this stuff fresh, and it's not going to start to feel redundant, is to truly treat each title like its own thing. And this episode here, I mean, this is exactly why Marvel right now is succeeding where, let's say, DC's failing to an extent, or Star Wars hasn't quite taken off in the way it could, because it's not afraid to go there. I mean, to give us an episode that's all mining the psychological depths of these characters, it's a bold choice. You're potentially going to piss off fans. I don't know what my kids are going to think of this episode, but I thought it was really, I couldn't stop watching, and I watched it a second time because there were so many things. I'm like, I know I missed like half of it. And it's funny, early on, I know the complaint about the cinematographer they use the same cinematographer from Game of Thrones, who apparently doesn't turn on any lights.
That's
so
what
first,
I said,
yeah, it's like, oh crap, they're doing it again. But then thankfully they figured out how to switch the 4Ks on. So it worked out pretty great. But yeah, no, I thought this was a cool episode. I admire its boldness.
Well, the interesting thing about how your kids are going to respond, Eric, will be if every time you come into the room, their eyes roll back in their head and they start speaking with a British accent. That's going to kind of tell you everything that you need to know.
And they hide your belts.
Well, they already do that. He's not allowed to have shoelaces either. But Michael,
or spoons even.
Yeah, well, for a very different reason. Michael, was this episode hippotastic in your book, or?
Guys, I absolutely hated this episode.
I was fairly sure, but
that
I wanted
that fed my strength.
Yeah,
that made me like it more.
Oh,
your hate only makes Khonshu and Tawaret stronger.
Yeah. Listen, that hippo. Okay, so what is with her being like this Egyptian hippo and sounding like the lady from Fleabag? Like, I don't get that. And like, I don't know if that was supposed to be like fan funny, but I just found it like so hard to get past. I couldn't really concentrate on anything else.
Well, I mean, I think that I can understand that being distracting, but it's like, going back a couple decades, HBO had this series called Rome, where everyone was British, and you just had to go with it. And I think there's a lot of times it's like, British is the new American. We just have to accept it. Apparently, those are the only actors that they ever want to use. So apart from that, did you get any satisfaction out of getting a little bit more of the backstory to Mark and Steven?
I liked that Steven fell off the boat and died. I think that it's best for Mark to move past him. I think
probably right.
Maybe open himself up to the knowledge that Steven had. I don't know. I think this also makes room for the other personality that, we've been kind of like assuming is coming.
Right. To go back to episode 4, there was the box that was trying to open, and we've long thought that there's the third personality but I was really expecting when the scales didn't balance that was of course why. And I'm like, all right, obviously we're going to get the third person. It's the second to last episode, but surprise.
Oh, no. Yeah. I knew that it was because they couldn't both be there. Like one of them had to be gone.
Right. And if it had been up to you, Michael, you would have pushed Steven off the boat, right?
Gently.
Okay. Well, you know what? That's nice. Yeah. Jeff, we all along, I know that Moon Knight has this has not been your favorite of these series, but what did you think of this episode that took place in largely in an asylum, and certainly in the asylum of the mind, as it were?
Ooh. It's devastating. I came into Moon Knight so excited because I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be really cool. We're gonna get to see like the sci-fi world of Marvel. We're gonna get to see some action. We're gonna get to see Moon Knight." And I just don't understand the arc of this story. Like we're in the 5th episode of 6, and we're learning about backstory right now. We wasted time doing some like jumps and hoops and talking to people about irrelevant dads and tombs and stuff last episode, just wasting time. Now we're in an asylum for a whole episode, not talking about the third person, Jake or whatever. It just seemed like we were wasting time. The whole episode, I literally had to face just like, I like looked down at my clock. I'm like, so we're really gonna do this? We have one episode left to answer so many questions, and I was like, maybe I'm just being negative because I want action. And then I started looking at other people's reactions and like how they tried to spin if this episode was good. And like, I'm not gonna call a certain person out, but online, I watched the reactions and they're like, "This is the best episode I saw so far," and I'm like, "That's a lie." And then they said,
"You don't know how many they saw."
Yeah, maybe this is the only one they saw.
Yeah.
And then they were like this, and then so the best part about it is we have so many questions to answer the next episode. I was like, that's not a good thing. We have one episode left. There's too many questions to be answered. This is not a good thing. This is not how you arc a story, a 6-episode story. We wasted some time. Marvel continues to do this. This is not the first series that they're kind of dropping the ball on, just like some iffy episodes. Why are the placements right here? We can't really blame COVID as much anymore. Like, you had some time to kind of consider where this episode should be. It seemed out of place for me. I need something to lead up to next episode. I don't even know where we're going. Like, he has to figure out how to undie, then how to get his God back.
So,
like, he has so much stuff.
He's dead. And he also has to get to Khonshu, but Toweret seemed to be able to help him. Craig Robinson asked us a little while ago, do you think they'll try and wrap up all the threads next week or leave it open-ended? Oh, that is going to be wide open-ended. I think that they will wrap up a little bit of the story, but they want to leave many, those doors that they could go to back into the land of the living. They want to leave as many of those doors open as possible. What do you think, David? Do you think that that they don't want to tidy this up in a nice little bow in one more week?
Well, I think I enjoyed the episode a lot more until Jeff spoke, and he has so many good points. I think I'm leaning Jeff now and a little bit of Michael. Because I think the hippo went too Disney. So I agree with you on the voice.
Exactly.
Literally straight out of Fantasia. Yeah.
I think as I said before, if this was episode 4 of 12, I'm on the roller coaster. I'm with you.
Sure.
but I need to see Moon Knight fight. We don't even know who he's fighting. I want him to punch somebody. Who's he going to punch?
Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, and I feel like it's going to end with to be continued in Doctor Strange or to be continued in Werewolf by Night. You know, another spinoff. I can feel like there's going to be a cliffhanger and then a scene that says, you know, that leads you to the next thing. But or Blade or Black or Black Knight. Yeah,
Black Knight.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and Blade might show up in the last episode, or something's going to happen that it'll distract you from the fact that you didn't get any answers, because there's no way to end. Like you said, they did the same thing with Book of Boba Fett. They had flashbacks. They told the story 6 episodes too late for things. It was all over the place.
And they turned the series over to another series that people liked
Mandalorian
a lot more.
took over, and all of a sudden
I was actually
great.
wondering if they were going to open the door and the Mandalorian would be there with Grogu in this show. Daniel Drew. Every time we get the Disney Plus surveys, I've never seen one, by the way.
No,
but every time he gets them, they have to do with series. I always have multiple comments that these shows need to be at least 10 episodes. Yeah, look, I don't want 22, but 10 would be nice. I think 10's a great number to tell a story. 6 really doesn't seem like enough. And yeah, I agree with the sentiment that an episode like this is great in a series that has more episodes. You know, a show like the Sopranos, you don't want to compare it to one of the greatest shows of all time, but you're able to take a detour because you're going to have enough story to tell. And I agree with that. What were you going to say, Eric?
No, I was going to say, like, so, I mean, for you, Jeff, like if this episode floated around, I don't know, number 3, would your take on this be markedly different, you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely needed to know that Steven's not real. We needed to know this information and to see it. But we have 1 episode left to show there was no action in this. There was some trimming. We didn't need to see Ethan Hawke in this episode. Like the fact that we saw different pieces that were from his old story, we saw that last episode. So it's like it's like filler parts that we didn't need. But in all, this episode could have been better as episode 3. I feel like Marvel's struggling with these limited series because if you think about it, I like Little Fires Everywhere is a great limited series that told a story and that ended a story. Like and it had like some cliffhangers or whatever, but it ended a story. This like Marvel is continuing like kind of not drop the ball, but just leaves too big of cliffhangers for me. I just don't know where it's going.
Well, one thing I was going to say, though, is that, I mean, you brought up Boba Fett and Mandalorian, you know, and how it's almost like in the case of Boba Fett, it felt like they didn't have enough real estate. So they're like, all right, we're just going to go move in over here for a couple episodes and we'll come back a little bit at the end. But this is one where I think I totally get your point about if this was sooner, maybe it would have played a little bit better because it is tough. Like I very different show, but Righteous Gemstones, which I think is great. Like each season they've done a flashback episode where, you know, which are really interesting, but they're self-contained. And when you're on heels of a pretty big cliffhanger, it's a big ask. It's like asking your audience, hey, wait, just wait, be patient, wait another week, and we'll pay off everything, or some things. So I could see that. I mean, one thing though I really thought was really interesting here was, I mean, the fact that it went so deep into his psychology and like I found like that was just genuinely dramatic. Like I felt things for the show I didn't necessarily feel in any of the other Marvel shows. Like the fact that it did double down on his trauma and his childhood trauma and trying to hide from things. I thought that was actually really bold. But I will agree, like, yeah, I also could have used it in episode 3, possibly even episode 2 if they really wanted to, or God forbid, sometimes you can go linear. It wouldn't have been the worst thing to show a bit of this in episode 1. I
think the bits that we got from this episode would have been great spread out over a few other episodes, actually, you know, given to us in I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even 2, 3, and 4. Because it definitely sort of like takes the momentum. But I think that, look, whatever comes out in the beginning of episode 5, you know, whoever, obviously the way it ends, Mark has reached the afterlife and he doesn't need to leave now if he doesn't want to. So that part of the experience, whatever happens there, where we realize when we see a fully realized Mark Spector in episode 6, it'll be sort of what we were getting. I mean, this really is essentially his origin story. And the fact of the matter is that you're all right. Everyone's right. We have not seen that damn Moon Knight suit in like 3 weeks now, and enough already. I would like to see. I'm tuning in for Moon Knight. I'm not tuning in for the Mark Spector story. I want to see Moon Knight punch people, even if we got to see it for a second when he first became Moon Knight. I was like, well, at least we get to see the suit, but I want him doing Moon Knight stuff.
Falcon and Winter Soldier did a really good job with giving us all the action.
Yeah.
And I feel like WandaVision did a really good job of being like a comic book. And it's just kind of feeling real Disney, real like, I don't know.
It feels Disney. This is psychological horror. I mean, like, I'm not. I can understand your comment on the hippo, but I mean, he's like, how deep in they went. They had a freaking Shiva. 2 of them actually.
There were 2 Shivas in one episode.
Two Shivas.
Yeah, I've never had to sit through one, so I'm going to defer to. I'm going to defer to.
Long, and they're
like Jungle Cruise vibes.
Yeah,
what
people buy one Shiva, get a free Shiva.
None of them.
It's a two for
you
Shiva.
Get the 5th one is free. Actually.
The only Shiva I ever sat through, Richard Belzer was sitting Shiva in an early episode of Homicide. That's how I learned what Shiva was. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Belzer taught me everything I know about Judaism. But
the Detective Munch, it was my he's like my Cantor. Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Wait, Cantor's the deli on Fairfax? Anyway, that's for us. But I don't know. I mean, I understand. I like the story of the episode. I can concede to everybody's point to have given the information of the story earlier, but you have heard me mention in passing, and anybody who follows me on Twitter knows how much I absolutely hate Star Trek Picard, season 2 in particular. There was a story about an incident from his past about his mom going crazy, very similar to this. Obviously, this is so much better than that. So I have just recently watched a really bad way to tell this same aspect of someone's backstory. And so I really appreciated this, I think, a lot more, because Star Trek Picard season 2 is one of the worst seasons of television I've ever watched. And I watched Lost all the way to the end. So obviously I stuck with just shoot me too long.
I never disliked Lost ever.
I did.
I liked it the whole time.
Well, good for you. Cool story, bro.
I'm sitting on the bench with Michael.
Talk about how
I agree. I thought it was great.
To be fair, that's impressive. You're not the only one I know. I liked it until the last episode. But
why? Oh, it's great.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another time. It's very I could do paint by numbers as to why I didn't like the Lost finale. But Kemi Egan, tell us how you really feel about Picard. I do. Every Friday at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. I don't know. It's almost over. That's all I can say about it.
You've got next season.
Well, next season they're going to give us what we want, allegedly, but even that I don't trust. Sure. But in terms of this story in this show, I think look, first episode. What did I say on this show? He's leaving messages for his mom because she's dead. So not a big shock, but to see that the timeline is that she only died recently. And Mark only recently couldn't go and sit Shiva. I thought that was interesting. I thought that maybe Steven had, they'd been alternating back and forth for a substantial amount of time. So did anybody find that interesting? That it's actually that part of the backstory brings us to basically right before the season started.
Well, he kept talking about how his mom. Wasn't he having like a hard time getting a hold of his mom in the beginning or something?
Well, he's just always leaving her voicemails.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know that you're
from the beginning,
because he says it to Ethan Hawke in this one or Dr. Harrow that she's always screening for telemarketers. So like he's got it all built in,
Well, you want to assume if she says that he's spoken to her recently. So that didn't really shock me.
Yeah, no, I don't think he had spoken to her that recently by the time the series starts. But yeah, I guess we're splitting hairs. I just thought that Mark and Steven had been operating like this for a long time. And it's really, that's the incident that pushed Steven out and I guess.
Well, to me, it seemed like big chunks of time
Yeah.
they were operating as other people. And
Yeah.
then only kind of recently they're going in and out. And that's how they kind of found that there were two of them.
Steven has a job, so it wasn't like he just appeared 2 months ago. He does have a life. And it looks like, Mark was mailing him postcards so he'd think his mother was still alive. But again, we don't know if that's reality or not, if any of that really happened. We don't know that yet. Although, if we assume that the episodes were real, then yes, Mark has been pretending that the mom was alive this whole time. I did want to just say that when he was standing outside by the car, they did the flashback and they showed one of them standing by a car drinking out of a flask, and both of them said they didn't recognize that memory.
Yeah.
I thought that was Jake Lockley. I thought that was somebody else.
Too.
And if you'll remember, or maybe you didn't notice, behind him was a taxi cab, which is what Jake drives in the comic book. So I thought maybe that was either Jake or it was an ode to Jake. But then later, when he admitted he was at a shiva and the mother was dead, I think maybe he was lying that he didn't remember that memory and that was actually Mark. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think I had the same thought when he says I don't remember that memory. I assumed that it refers to Jake, and really many times throughout the episode. I'm not the only one. A few of the people in the chat have mentioned that we were expecting to get a reveal of a third personality, and yes, that it would stand to reason that it was Jake. But I do think it's very possible, especially the lengths that Mark was going to basically protect Steven throughout all of it, to have lied about that moment. One, to just not want to relive it himself, but then also to not want to bring Steven into it. Yeah, I think that's entirely likely. Also, could this series end in episode 6 where the reveal is the third personality and they don't even deal with it? Because I will find that very frustrating, just to be honest. But
I now hope they do it that way just to get
just
your
because
reaction.
You want me to be mad. Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I would argue that I'd argue we've already seen Jake. There's a couple of scenes where remember when the kid who he cut the tie or the thing and he fell off, he's like, he was fighting the guys on the rooftop. When he's looking at the bloody knife, he says, "Mark, what did you do?" And Mark says, "I didn't do that."
Right.
And then there's a scene where he's got a whiskey bottle or something and he's in a hotel room naked on the floor. And I think that was also Jake. So I think the two of them may not
That's
be
also Michael
Jake.
Shirley, actually.
Great job.
Yeah, well, of course. But, look, I also think that Jake killed Layla's dad. And, because we're very vague on those details. And I think Mark means it when he says, "No, I didn't do that. I tried to save them." But then his job was basically to kill everyone. So I think that Jake might have emerged. We'll see. But yeah, I expect the payoff of the things that he doesn't remember. That one that you referenced, David, being the most significant, which is the guy who fell to his death, just sort of coming out in the middle of that. And Steven's like, "I don't know anything about that." So there's a lot of threads to tie up next week that I think we're not going to get it. I have a sneaking suspicion that Harrow will be defeated and that the world's not going to end. I don't know what makes me think that he's not going to be victorious. But Eric put his glasses on, so now you're taking what I'm saying very seriously. If you're about to put your glasses on,
I'm pondering.
And you're stroking your beard. By the way, was I the only one who really enjoyed Steven giving Dr. Harrow a Ned Flanders shout out? Because it was completely unnecessary, but I was like, he sure was. I think he was favoring his left hand, if I had to guess. But I don't know. I think here's the thing. Depending on next week, I might be able to like this episode a fair amount as we look back. But to Jeff's point, I don't have faith that we're going to get all the answers we want next week. And then the question becomes, you had 2 weeks to do it. Why did you save it for the end?
Well, as George Michael once said, you've got to have faith.
Yeah, and also as George Michael said, no, turn the lights off. Don't worry, no one will come in here. But George Michael says a lot of things. Is what I get. Glad we got some laughs there. I feel like Kate would have just shook her head at that one. In any case, I think that look, I want to have faith that next week's going to be a great episode. But just by a show of hands, who thinks that next week's going to be a great episode?
I think it's going to be better than this one. It has.
Well,
to
I
be.
think it's going to.
I'll put it up.
I think it'll give us some of what we want. But David, you were not quick to put that hand up. So, what do you think we'll actually get next week?
Well, I hope if Steven stays dead for most of the episode, there won't be the personality shifting. We won't have to deal with him stopping scenes in the middle to change characters. I think if it's pure Mark with a mission to save Khonshu and get back his powers and save Steven and whatever he has to do, I think then it's a Falcon Winter Soldier episode, and it's pure action. He's got a mission, and he's going to complete the mission happily ever after. I think losing Steven will help. Maybe the episode's 120, 125, a little longer. And I feel like there's hope, right? I feel like no more backstory, no more unnecessary conversations, fighting, killing, stabbing. And maybe we find out. I like your theory on Bushman. In the comics, his partner Bushman was the one who killed everybody in the encampment in Egypt. But I like the Jake angle a lot. So that would be an oh wow for me.
Yeah,
if it was Jake.
Yeah, Daniel Drew gets credit for bringing Bushman into this. I think you're absolutely right. Killing, fighting, stabbing is going to be the note I want this show to go out on. Even if people that I've got some kind of attachment to get killed, fought, or stabbed. I'm sorry. To me, Layla's expendable. I'm just going to say it. All right. If it makes for a good story and that's going to be more tragic for Mark, we'll allow it. But, I earlier in the series, I had enough of Steven, and I felt like we needed to move past him. And then I think we got him in a good way. But yes, I think that this finale shouldn't really have, we needed to get past the Steven. So if we get those three things, Jeff, killing, fighting, stabbing, was it worth it to have this episode to basically explain why Steven wasn't going to be there, putting the brakes on everything? So if we get, let's just say we're actually only going to get 53 minutes. If it's say 48 minutes of killing, stabbing, and fighting, Jeff, do you feel like, all right, at least that's what I wanted from this show from the beginning? And don't forget that your mic's off.
Great call, because I was about to forget. I will be happy for the episode. I won't. My thought will still stand that I think that their story arcs of 6 episodes are not like hitting well. They're not going well. I just don't understand that we're doing backstory in the 5th episode of a six episode story arc. We had so much time to do that. There was still too much in this episode for me to be okay with an action-packed 6 episode. I'm hopeful. I don't expect it to happen though. I expect Ethan Hawke to slow it down and talk for a minute, and then Layla to talk about her dad again, and and us to see Moon Knight randomly, and then us to still not have any answers because Oscar Isaac has not signed on to do any other thing. So
Correct.
They have to leave it open. They have to leave it open at some point. So it's like, how open are they going to do it? How annoying is it going to be for us?
But someone else could be the avatar of Khonshu if Oscar Isaac doesn't come back. Just a quick question, Jeff. Compare the enjoyment of this episode to something we talked about recently, only a few weeks ago. Was it as entertaining as watching Dr. Michael Morbius, or was it at least better than that, or is it about the same?
This is better. This is better than that. I mean, I didn't go to a whole movie theater to watch a whole movie that was literally. No, it was better than Morbius.
That's all I needed. I needed to because I told you that's my benchmark for you. The time you tell me something's worse than Morbius, I'm like, oh, okay.
Venom 2.
Well, yeah, but we knew that. We knew Venom 2. Great point from Craig from across the pond. Are we going to see Mark diving into the underworld pool to reach for Steven like Hercules so he can become a true hero? I don't know. Eric, I feel like Steven's gone. I think we've said goodbye to Steven.
Steven looked pretty dead to me. And I think also too, because that was what he needed to get the scale to actually, line up. Steven had to go, like, because in essence, like, that's Steven's the thing screwing up the scales from the beginning. So I think that's it for Steven. And so, to thine own self be true, as Billy Shakespeare once said, it's just him. Although I agree that third person's going to pop up somewhere. It's just a matter of when.
So to that point, the scale thing, it was uneven because Steven was alive, but like, what about Jake? So the scale just doesn't know about that, or I'm like, I thought the scale was uneven because they needed another heart, like as in Jake, and not we got to take one back. So this really doesn't. I'm really
questions. That's the corner they've painted themselves into. Like, and that's, you're right. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't line up right now. Will it? I don't know. Because
here's my thought.
Go ahead.
What if Steven doesn't have a soul, right? He's just a mental personality. So what if the heart was metaphorical, or it was just there to be seen by Mark? Maybe Mark was imagining the second heart, and Steven only died in Mark's mind because Mark was able to heal himself. He saw that, Steven told him it wasn't your fault your brother died. That was what balanced the scales, him getting over that anguish of his whole life, where he doesn't need Steven to be the punching bag anymore, the stress ball. But that doesn't mean that he can't imagine Steven again, right? So Steven's not a person. So the memory of Steven, the thought of Steven died, but it doesn't mean he can't come back. I think the scale balanced because Mark's mind was right, his heart was right, and he realizes it wasn't his fault, to stop blaming himself for his brother. And it took Steven talking to him to help him with that. But I don't think Steven exists, so I don't think he's dead really. He's just dead to Mark, right. If that makes any sense.
Well, it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It's the manifestation of his trauma, basically.
Right, because he was never actually alive. He just sort of emerged. David, how do you think Jake fits into this? Like, if you're given these 5 completed episodes and it's like, all right, we're not really sure what to do, you figure out how to get Jake in here. How do you think it makes sense to get Jake in during this last less than an hour?
Well, I mean, if he's a psychotic killer, more than Mark, who's a hired mercenary, which is not what he was in the comic books, then either he is Bushman, right, a fabrication, where actually Jake killed everybody in Egypt, and now he has to deal with that problem. That's how you bring him in. But if that's not the story, then maybe he needs to dig down deep at some point in a fight scene, or he needs to kill somebody he doesn't want to kill, and that's when Jake comes out and does the killing for him. Like, even the mercenary can't do it. Right? Maybe that's... But then again, how do you introduce Jake that quickly? Even though we may have seen him, it's not confirmed.
You still have to take the time to explain it. Absolutely.
Right. Which means a flashback of Jake killing everybody in the desert.
Yeah.
That would be the only way
I
to
like
do it.
this thought from Dominicus Saxon, looking to blow our minds here. What if that second heart was Jake's and Steven never actually had a heart? It's a great theory that I like. I just wonder, though, because we had the representation of the two of them, and I guess the third one was locked up. Look, if they can explain that away, sure. I love the idea, though, because I wasn't thinking that at all. So that's why that's why the comment was very distracting to me. So, and then BSP says, "Here's my theory: Steven is condemned, Mark's passed on, but the third personality, which was trapped in the coffin, will take over. So Jake will take over. I don't think Jake should be the one to take over. I think it needs to be Mark. But I guess we could end that way. If we end with the reveal that Jake exists and they want to go tell more stories, I guess. Just because Oscar Isaac hasn't signed on for more, I don't know that it means that he won't. It also, at this point, could mean that they haven't announced that he has signed on, but perhaps he has. And, I don't know. Look, all this conversation, David, it goes right back to what you were saying. It's why these shows are so much better that they come out once a week, because they let us talk about it. Even the best shows on Netflix, you watch them, even if you break it up a little bit and you watch them over like 2 or 3 weeks, you still burn through them so quickly, and then people aren't talking about them after a month. So I think this rollout has been very effective for these shows. When the shows are good, it helps. It didn't help much for Book of Boba Fett because we got to really talk about, how bad it was so many weeks in a row. Star Trek Picard, I wish that they had just put all 10 of them out at once so that I could have forgotten about it already. So there's exceptions. When the show's good, though, I mean, think about, your favorite shows. When you think back to the heyday of Lost, I'm not even going to talk about what I didn't like. Why did people like that show? Because we all had the theories. We were like, did you see that thing? It was great. It's tough to do that anymore. And I think these shows, these Disney Plus shows, manage to do this in a way that a lot of other shows don't. But I don't know, Jeff, do you feel like you would have really been a lot better with this episode if you'd been able to watch all 6 of them like a month ago?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of this episode. Like, I think that it gave us some good information, but even if it like all 6 together, I still don't think it fits. Like, I feel like it was prolonged. It was good information, but like this episode and last episode was prolonged. Mainly last episode, because I didn't care about any of the dialogue between Ethan Hawke and Layla, and it's just like I felt like there was just a lot of empty space. I didn't care about any of the dialogue between Ethan Hawke and Mark really in this episode. So I just feel like it was prolonged. If I had all 6 together, it'd probably be better because you can binge watch it and you just get to enjoy it for what it is, because I'm hoping that 6 would be better. But yeah.
Michael, I just thought about a way that I could try to get you to come around on this episode. At no point for even a split second did we see Catherine Hahn. So does that help your enjoyment of this episode? Just a little?
Sure.
Yes.
You're like,
yes.
Not really. Not even.
It helps me.
All right. That's fair.
Wait, are you not a Han fanatic either, Jeff?
No, not really.
All right. I think
they just fired her from her Joan Rivers job before she even started filming.
She was going to be Joan Rivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, apparently we can't talk.
Yeah, I love that. That was quick.
That was good. Oh,
thank you.
It's just,
I mean, you could retire with that line.
You know what? You're right, David.
I love it.
What
can
were
we
you
all say
saying?
a prayer? Oh shoot, I was going to turn this to a minion. Oh, never mind.
Hey, did you guys notice I think it was a plot hole when Mark is at the desk of Dr. Harrow and he's talking to him. Did you notice the square cup holder full of pens that was right by Mark?
Yeah.
Wouldn't a man who's a little out of his mind, who's a trained killer, be
someone
you'd want to keep a cup full of sharp pens away from?
And that glass pyramid?
Yeah, the glass pyramid
actually picked up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think that because it is a construct and it's not an actual doctor's office. It's not an actual psych ward. I think that those things are there because Mark's mind is trying to sort of help him. Like, you should stab this guy in the eye. Right. And I don't know, but yeah, I had that thought going back to last week. I was just like, look at these things in this office. There are so many ways that this guy could kill people.
And when he doubted he was a real doctor, couldn't he have? I was hoping he'd ask him to roll his sleeve up to see if the crocodile tattoo was on his forearm.
Oh,
because that was the only thing. He's like, oh, you have a different haircut, right? And you're all dressed up and you fixed the place up, but I still think you're the bad guy. Well, if he's the bad guy, I doubt he put makeup on his tattoo that he thought that far ahead. I would have asked him to roll his. I mean, he's clearly the bad guy, right? But here's I'll throw a question out to you. We talked at the beginning. Were all the episodes in his mind? In other words, is he at the asylum imagining all of that, or did all of that happen? And now that he's in the asylum, he's imagining everything in the asylum to be what he remembered from the episodes. In other words, the other way around. Does the room look like the room when he was with Layla? Do the lamps look like the lamps in his real life because he did live that, and now he's creating this asylum world because of what he lived, versus the other theory that a lot of people have, which is he imagined all of that first or second, rather.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the construct is the asylum. I mean, because that was the explanation we got from Towerette. I was leaning that way last week, but I was convinced this week that that is actually what's not real. Also, that feels very familiar. I mean, I said last week it felt too much like Legion, so I didn't think that we were actually going to be in a real psych ward. Does anybody else think the opposite, though, to David's point, that the psych ward is actually the reality? I know, Eric, I know you've done a couple of stints in little rubber rooms like that. Did it feel accurate to you? Did it take you back to some good times?
I did stints in rooms with rubber costumes. It's a little bit different, Christian, as Michael has taught me many times.
Yes. But the only problem was that your safe word was harder.
I don't think a blow up doll counts as like.
Hey,
if it doesn't count, then I'm still a virgin.
Yeah, no judgment.
Aren't you children watching right now?
Oh shoot, you're right. Alex is learning about daddy all the time.
Anyway, sorry. Let's try to right this ship.
Man. Oh no!
I did most of that. I'm taking the blame. That's mostly my fault. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So after I have to sort of figure out how to pay for the therapy for that one comment,
Yep.
I don't think I can't imagine it's all set within the asylum. I do think this asylum, it's all representational of his own mind, his own journey. It's all about going backwards. It's all about looking at the roots of all his assorted meshigas, to give you a little Yiddish in the mix. So yeah, no, I don't think it's set there. I think this is it's a construct of him trying to face these things, or maybe hide from these things. So, I think he's just chilling in that water somewhere in that tomb, waiting to come back to life.
Yeah, I think that's the consensus, unless Jeff, you or Michael feel that I never, from last week, I never thought that was the reality. It's still not impossible. But
I think all this stuff is happening kind of like a dream does. Like you think that a dream's going on for hours and it's going on for a minute or two. Like I think all this stuff is happening within like seconds, and I think we're gonna take up like right where he like hits the water and everything's gonna change.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So, David, I know you posed the question. Do you feel that is the most likely scenario, or are you still feel like there's a almost equal chance that it could go either way next week?
No, after episode 4, and for the past month, like we talked about, I've thought that it was all a fantasy, and every breakdown I've seen is like, oh, it's a fantasy. Look, it's all in the asylum. But now, especially the last couple of minutes of our conversations, I do believe that it's the dream he's having as he's sinking in the water. And as Michael said, it goes by quickly, but in his world, it's lasting a long time. So I think he got to the bottom of that pond or whatever it is, and that's where he got to the Sea of Reeds, because he's dead. He got shot by Arthur. And I think this is all his imagination. So 100%.
I don't pretend to be smart, but what I do remember reading a very long time ago, sort of this observation that someone who legitimately was smart, they woke up after this really elaborate dream that seemed to take an incredibly long time, and in the end of the dream, they were beheaded by a guillotine, and like their bed frame had fallen and hit them in the head. So like in like an instant, their brain processed this elaborate explanation for why they were waking up, and it stayed with me enough that I feel like you've seen it used as a device in storytelling. It could be instantaneous that we had all this, that he never actually was separated from Stephen, and walking around in a hallway together. It's entirely possible. But David, I think the most important reason to have you on the show is because we've changed your mind multiple times throughout the course of the conversation. So the conversation you would have had with somebody before this show might be very different than the one you would have after. Before we run out of time entirely, Eric, I know that you sent some of your handiwork. So we're going to start with this one. And why don't you talk about what was the moment that you felt you needed to share this?
What is that? That is the moment where we discover how Freddy Krueger got his powers, which didn't occur until Freddy's dead, which was the 6th entry, and as you could tell by the
Alice Cooper played his father. I remember it well, actually. Yes,
yeah, and it was in 3D for just a little bit. We're
just
literally
that part
a character,
of the movie,
yeah, character put on glasses in the film.
Is this the 3D part?
Yeah, you have to watch the video clip. It's wonderfully terrible. But the idea of like him on his deathbed, like he's on fire, and all of a sudden little demon's like, Freddy, join with us. He's like, okay, cool. And that was so when I was watching the moment, we kind of knew this was the thing, even though we hadn't seen it yet. But yeah, him dying in Southern Country was like, join me. He's like, cool. Totally Freddy's Dead vibes without the terrible 3D.
Yeah, I love that you went to the Freddy Krueger origin story from Freddy's Dead, but you didn't go deep enough to go to the episode of Freddy's Nightmares, the television series that told the and yes, that's just another example of me just trying to show off. And
what year?
So that was
1989.
Yeah, late 80s. There was a Friday the 13th series that had nothing to do with that franchise. And there was a Freddy's Nightmares.
Freddy's Nightmares was at least an anthology where you saw Freddy Krueger,
like the Crypt Keeper.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That it was after that show had started, and they're like, "Great, let's do that with Freddy." We're already off the topic, so this is a perfect time to bring up the other graphic you sent me. That I think is
a collection of my Jewish superheroes.
Yes,
nice.
Okay.
Lenny Kravitz.
I'm putting Lenny Kravitz,
of course. Lenny Kravitz. Mike. Yeah.
Is he really Jewish?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, his name's Lenny.
His mother is the Jewish woman from the Jeffersons, the neighbor.
Marla Gibbs, right?
No,
not Marla Gibbs.
Marla Gibbs is not. Yeah,
they're actors.
The white couple that lived upstairs and they walked on the husband's back. Yes. I think the father was his father.
I would have to look it up actually. Yeah. And Cami Egan telling us Cami Egan telling us so much about her that she's excited to see Goldberg, by the way.
And 2 Goldbergs, Adam and regular.
Oh, and of course Sandy Koufax, who it was the World Series he didn't pitch during, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, it was Yom Kippur, wasn't it?
Yeah. He chose to not start because it was Yom Kippur. And
fasting, yes, fastball, no.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think that's actually, you guys were bar mitzvah, you tell me, but that's on the Torah, right?
That is.
I got a tattoo that says that, even though I shouldn't have a tattoo. No, I will now though. That might be perfect. Yeah, and actually, the moment him taking off his kippah and smashing it, that actually had an impact on me. I got to admit, even it wasn't. You're not supposed to do that to a Torah or a Bible, whatever. Yarmulkes, I don't know, David, your experience might be different, but I don't remember the yarmulkes being treated quite that way. And yet still seeing him smash it, I kind of felt that moment in a weird way. I'm like, oh God, I had like my own little sort of asylum flashback to being in Hebrew school with lots of rabbis and kids.
Yeah, as a Jew, I thought 2 things. One, I think he was shunning religion. I think at that moment he didn't want to believe in the religion. He had lost hope. His mother had died. The other thing is, if you know anything, when a Jewish person dies, you're not supposed to care about material things, which is why you cover your mirrors up so you don't look at yourself, so you're not vain. And very religious will rip their clothing. They rip their clothing. What we do as non-very religious Jews is they cut a piece of cloth and they pin it to you to represent the torn clothing. So it also could have been him destroying the clothing, which in this case was his yarmulke, or his kippah, if you prefer. And that was the symbolic Jewish move. So one of the two, either he didn't care about the religion or he was observing the religion. But either way, I started thinking about that when he did that. Absolutely.
Well, and clearly this is the reason why you're both on this specific episode, because I felt like our regular resident Jewish expert wasn't going to be enough to explain this to all the goyim out there in the audience. And by the way, David, always coming to the rescue, Cami Egan. Roxy Roker was Helen Willis on the Jeffersons, and that is Lenny Kravitz's mother.
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
So that means she's grandma to Catwoman. Is that the takeaway from that? If that's Lenny's mom,
I guess, yeah.
So then it's Zoe Kravitz's grandmother. So that's the new version of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Look, I'm excited to see where the show goes, and I'm going to reserve judgment on looking back on the whole series. I think Jeff already feels like he's going to be let down, but look, we could be a week from now. We could be talking about that. You at least got some of what you wanted, and maybe you're a little bit happier. A week from now, I'll also be unable to talk about the fact that I'll have already seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'll have to keep that to myself. Jeff unfortunately is unable to attend. Eric is unfortunately unable to attend, and the other gentlemen on screen don't live locally. So, I believe I'll be bringing Kaitlin with me. So,
why can't they go?
Eric has to work and he can't get to Century City in time. And Jeff has a family obligation that
must be a real thing.
Out of town. Jeff will be out of town. Yeah.
Aww.
So,
are you seeing it in IMAX or a regular screen?
I think if I get there early enough, I get let into the IMAX theater. But if everybody else is ahead of me, then I have to sit in the Peon theater. So hopefully we'll see if I get to see it in IMAX. But if you remember, Jeff, when we went to see Eternals, if we had known, we would have gotten there. We wouldn't have stopped at Shake Shack. We would have gone earlier and seen Eternals in IMAX. Yeah.
You get to pee in the theater, like in your chair.
No. If you're gonna pee on,
you didn't know?
Yeah. It depends. If you're in the nice theater with the nice chairs, you can
in
pee
Tennessee. Yeah, that's fine.
So I need to bring my Depends.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
It's only 2 hours and 6 minutes though. This isn't Batman. This isn't Avengers. So
it's already being banned in certain countries because
they had to make an adjustment. We'll talk about it when we talk about the movie, but they had to adjust. I think the America Chavez character, right? They had to basically take some stuff out there, and don't let Disney fool you. If a country says you need to make a change to your art so that you can make more money, they will, I believe, always say yes. I mean, the Star Wars posters where they took John Boyega and went, let's put him way in the back, because that's what the Chinese asked us to do. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like BB-8 is bigger than him. In any case, this was a fun conversation. And David, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the episode so that you could join us and actually joining us. Please now take your time and let everybody know where they can find you, especially if they're Walking Dead fans.
Well, in addition to being one of the executive producers of the nationally syndicated Elvis Duran in the Morning show, which you can hear all over the country and on iHeartRadio, you can hear me on the Brooklyn Boys podcast, where I have a male co-host. We're both from the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, and we talk about our lives and we complain about a lot of stuff. I complain a lot more than he does. It's sort of like Larry David, but angrier. And the other podcast I do is Walkers and Talkers, where my co-host Jamie from Light FM in New York and I break down every episode of The Walking Dead and all of its spinoffs and interview people from the show. And if you're a Walking Dead fan, it'll be up your alley.
Right. And they can follow you just at David Brody, Brody.
At that over here, right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right
there. Yeah. All my socials are at David Brody.
And before the baseball season started, you joined myself and David Salmon Weiss, and we predicted the baseball season. And at this point, none of us are watching, but the Cardinals are up 8-4 on the Mets. So I probably will not put that game on. I will not put that game on after we're done.
I will not watch it on my DVR now. Thank you for saving me the trouble.
I would feel bad if it was maybe the other way, but in any case, so that's where you can find David. And Eric, please let people know where they can find you and your movie.
Sure. Well, I will be sitting Shiva for this Mets game over at Count Eric Connor, hanging out on Twitter and Instagram with my beard, probably not with the kippah on, but things can happen. Who knows? And I don't know, if you're in the mood to get a little more Judaism and Muslim into your diet, check out the documentary Other Voices, not the Other Voices film Michael Shirley watched, but the documentary over on Amazon, also known as Aswat al-Harim. And I wish all of you well. Sei gesund.
And
Zygazoo.
also not the other voices, the Doors album without Jim Morrison. I haven't made that joke
Oh, you
in
can
about a
listen
year.
to that one.
So.
That's your
Yeah,
own,
but no,
your own risk.
definitely do
Never
not
heard
do
it.
that. You don't. Just trust me. There's a reason why he was the singer. And Jeff Williams Jr., where can people find you?
I was about to say at Jeff Williams Jr., but it's not. It's at Jeff Will Jr.
Yeah.
On all your social media platforms. And I have my own website now. Guess what it is? JeffWillJr.com.
Great.
It's so hard.
Nice.
I'm gonna go there, and
Yes.
I will not share any spoilers from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Thank you, because I
will
probably
not
won't
be
even.
able
I
to.
don't even know if I'm going to show up to the show on Wednesday because I'm trying to avoid all spoilers, and you
Well,
might.
we won't talk. We're only going to talk about Moon Knight on Wednesday. So
But I'm going to ask you questions.
Oh well, yeah, but I won't be allowed to answer them. And of course, Michael Shirley can be found on Instagram on something that I've never said. I hate Michael Shirley. I've never said that.
Really? Not even to your wife in private?
Sometimes I'm exhausted by Michael Shirley. That's
Okay.
probably something that I.
Is that not your safe word?
I hate Michael Shirley's his
is
safe
your
word.
safe word.
Yeah.
And Michael, we all know where to find you on Twitter. Michael X Shirley.
Yeah,
and
you know, my social media is pretty much just turned into performance art at this time. I hope Elon Musk can just make me care.
Specifically, the performance art that I believe is known as Piss Christ. I think that's essentially what
I
it
don't
makes
know
me.
that one.
Oh, go ahead and look it up.
Oh,
as always, you can find
Google
me on Twitter and
carefully.
Instagram at Christian DMZ and subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. And you'll please join us for our weekly therapy session. There's only 2 more, Friday, 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, as we hopefully can soon sit Shiva for Star Trek Picard season 2. There's only 2 more hours. How bad could it be? Probably worse, but that's all the time we have for next week. We will see you next week for the finale of Moon Knight. Until then, as the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior!